Greetings, this is Paul, your Pacific Northwest trail guide. I want to help you pick your next trail to explore, so let's check this one out. Not all trails are plotted on widely available maps. I'm going to do something a little different with this guide and share one that is not on maps. It's a short little loop of about 2 miles with only a couple hundred feet of hills to get over. The loop travels through a very special sheltered grove of giant old-growth trees. Some of the biggest red cedar and Douglas fir trees in the Columbia River Gorge are in this area, with trunks over 8 feet in diameter. You might even love this place enough to stay for the night. There is no permit required to visit this unmarked trail location. Considering the difficulty in navigating this unmaintained and sometimes difficult to follow trail, it is necessary to bring some kind of GPS or map and compass for navigation to bail you out if you lose your way and get lost. The area of this hike appears to be great mushroom habitat, so that is the most likely foraging opportunity here in the right season. I saw a few lobster mushrooms here and there in my early fall rainy visit. While this may be an unmarked and unadvertised trail location, it's not overly difficult to get to. It is quite close to the grassy knoll trailhead at Triangle Pass as a reference point, but see the video description for the exact waypoint. Coming east on Washington Highway 14, you turn north onto the Cook Underwood Road for a few miles after the Dog Mountain trailhead. You follow that until a Y and veer onto Willard Road toward the small town of Willard. Soon after passing through Willard, you see this junction with Forest Road 66 heading off to the left and turn onto it. After following that for a while, you reach this Y with Forest Road 68 heading off to the left and head that way. From this junction, it is about 3.4 miles to the trail. There is nothing to mark the spot other than a widening of the road at a sharp turn that allows for maybe 4 or 5 cars to park there. Heading up the west end of the parking strip to find the trail, duck into the trees and you'll see a path heading into the forest of young trees, which after a short way begins to switch back down a hill. We'll be taking a loop heading west first and visiting a campsite by a small creek after less than a mile. Continuing past the camp, we'll start heading east. Soon after, we turn north on the loop and reach Lost Creek. We'll take a short diversion down along Lost Creek for a while to visit more of the giant trees in the grove here. After turning back to the loop, it's a short way uphill to complete the loop. The trail quickly reaches the bottom of the hill, and you may already start spotting some of the pretty big firs here and there. With this being an unofficial trail, you'll encounter several log obstacles to maneuver around or under that have obviously been present for many years. When you reach this creek crossing, this ancient fallen tree serves as a bridge to cross it. When you approach, it doesn't look like you would go that way because there is a young cedar growing on the log and several other logs across it now past that. But here is a view coming from the other side to briefly show the intended path. Continuing on after you cross that creek, the trail passes through an area of vibrant green with logs that had sections cut out for the trail so many decades ago that they are rotten and have thick pelts of moss on them. You come uphill a little but soon turn south some to follow along a hillside. The trail comes gradually down towards the creek below, and you approach the campsite here. It's a really nice place, but the nearby creek is very small and may be dry in summer, and you might need to hike back to the main Lost Creek if you were camped here in summer and needed to get water. A different trail heads out of camp on the right to continue the loop. After going along for a bit, you start to see a few more of the giant Douglas firs that make their home near this smaller runoff creek that feeds into Lost Creek. As you get close to Lost Creek, you start to see more giant old red cedars, including this trio who really seem to like each other. You reach the creek and cross and soon reach this giant, which unfortunately has a pretty big tree leaning on it. It's pretty stout though and appears to be rather unfazed by it. After turning off of the loop to follow the trail down along Lost Creek for a bit, you would start to encounter a bit more concentrated old growth. You may also be yelled at by some squirrels that are not accustomed to being invaded in their home. Obviously, the squirrels would rather us not be here, but also some people might think this place should be kept a secret. I actually think it would be better if more people visited here. Perhaps it would make it less likely for the Forest Service to decide to harvest it sometime in the future. trail gets fainter and fainter as you meander through the grove and eventually peters out. The original trail may go farther than I explored, but this is about where I turned back. Returning to the main loop trail here, we turn right and continue on back to the west as the trail follows along Lost Creek for a little bit. There are still a few more giants to see along the way though. Take this last look at Lost Creek before you leave it and head off to the north and begin climbing the hill to the road. The terrain on this route is pretty tame. There are just some logs to crawl over and small creek crossings to do, so I rate it 2 out of 5. For navigation, I rate it 3 out of 5. Like I said before, this trail is unmaintained and not obvious to follow. Do not come here and attempt this unless you are comfortable with using some navigation tool to help you out. For length, this is a very short hike, so I rate it 2 boots. The climb is very little, even enough for the short length, so I rate it the minimum. That's all for this edition of Pacific Northwest Trail Guide. I scouted this trail in October of 2025, but trails are always evolving. If you pick this trail and encounter any changes people might like to know about, please help out your fellow explorers by sharing in the comments on this video. A picture may be worth 1,000 words, but an experience with all of your senses cannot even be conveyed by pictures or video. So don't take my word for it. Get out there and see it for yourself.